Welcome to the deep dive. Turn down the lights, grab that final cup of tea, or, something a little stronger, because tonight we are not dwelling on blurry iPhone footage from 2023.
No, definitely not.
We are setting the clock back, way, way back, into the dusty, incredible history of high strangeness. We're talking about the original Close Encounters, the celestial chariots, the flaming shields, and the entities that have been messing with us since the first time someone figured out how to write stuff down.
That's absolutely the mission.
Yeah.
Most of the time when this topic comes up in, modern conversation, it usually starts in 1947.
Kenneth Arnold, right?
Kenneth Arnold sighting of flying objects over Mount Rainier. Everything before that, the conventional thinking just treats as quaint folklore.
Right, just fairy tales.
Which, as our reading clearly demonstrates, is a massive historical and cultural mistake. This phenomenon is not modern. It might actually be mankind's oldest story.
Exactly. And tonight we're not treating these accounts as like theological arguments or dry historical footnotes.
Yep.
We're treating them as the utterly bizarre, deeply compelling stories they are. Because when you stack them up, the sheer volume of coincidence and consistent description over 4 millennia it's unsettling.
It really is.
We're going to unpack some moments from history that genuinely sound like they were pulled directly from a high-budget, very confusing sci-fi movie. We've got some truly wild stuff coming up.
We do. We are going straight into the heart of the matter, like the biblical prophet Elijah, who achieved the ultimate vanishing act,
Yeah.
getting scooped up by a high-energy chariot of fire.
Oh, and you can't miss the terrifying 16th century aerial dogfight that broke out over Nuremberg.
Oh, that one's incredible.
We're talking discs, pipes, crosses, and tactical maneuvers. It was a literal air war witnessed by an entire population.
An entire city. And then there's the mind-blowing account of the 9th century French archbishop, a brilliant rationalist, who had to argue desperately with a violent mob.
To save 4 people who allegedly fell right out of a flying ship.
Fell right out of it. They were about to stone them to death. That level of belief it's staggering.
Staggering. But perhaps my personal favorite is the story of the drunken Cossack in 18th century Russia.
Ah, yes.
Who decided that the massive 10-foot-tall metal ball he found in a field needed a good fight. And that ball opened up to reveal a single, horrifying, inhuman eye.
Chilling stuff.
If that doesn't hook you for the rest of this deep dive, then honestly, nothing will.
So settle in, because we are diving deep into these historical archives, where the line between divinity, demons, and advanced inexplicable technology is, well, it's completely blurred.
Okay, let's unpack this with the absolute oldest narratives we have, starting with the stories where the line between divinity and technology is, well, it's completely gone.
Yeah, it's non-existent.
We're talking about the Hebrew Bible and specifically celestial chariots and fiery departures that sound less like angels and more like high-energy transports.
Yeah. We begin our chronological journey around 850 BC in Israel with the story of the prophet Elijah. And to understand the drama of his departure, you really need the context.
Yeah.
Elijah was locked in this brutal theological and political battle with King Ahab. Ahab worshipped Baal, the Phoenician sun god, who controlled the sky, the weather, and especially the rain.
Which is why Elijah's whole thing was denying rain. He essentially challenged the local deity's monopoly on the celestial sphere.
He did.
He was basically saying, my invisible friend can shut off your plumbing and yours can't. This massive drought was a direct challenge to the very foundation of Baal's power.
Precisely. The stakes were astronomical. So when it came time for Elijah to leave, it couldn't be subtle. It had to be a statement.
A grand exit.
In the book of 2 Kings, Elijah is preparing his disciple, Elisha. And he says something very specific. He says, you ask a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you.
So he set a condition on the viewing, like you have to witness this for it to count.
Exactly. And then you get this dramatic entrance. The text is so physical and descriptive. It says, and it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder.
It parted them. It physically separated the 2 men.
And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven.
A whirlwind, not just like, poof, he's gone. There's this massive, violent physical force involved. It's an industrial strength departure.
It is. This is a classic rapture narrative, but it's framed in terms of incredible heat, speed, and force. A vehicle, a fiery chariot accompanied by extreme wind, physically splitting 2 people apart.
It's all about energy.
It's all about energy.
Yeah.
Now, the key insight here, linking theology to the abduction theme, is that Elijah did not die.
Yeah.
He was transported. He vanished. and the religious tradition still waits for his return.
So this is arguably the oldest recorded story of a physical transportation by an aerial phenomenon.
It is a narrative of being picked up by an entity associated with a hot, fast-moving craft.
I mean, if you read that without the theological baggage, you are left with an intensely hot, noisy vehicle, the chariot of fire, that generates a localized, powerful wind, the whirlwind, and then lifts off, taking the passenger away. It's a launch sequence.
It sounds a lot like one. But if Elijah's story is a swift departure, Ezekiel's vision, which follows a bit later, is truly the technical manual for the heavily confused.
Oh, this one is the gold standard.
Ezekiel's imagery, seen around 593 BC, is the blueprint for how to describe incomprehensible technology using ancient language. He saw this strange craft approach described first as a great cloud coming from the north with raging fire engulfing itself.
Raging fire. So not a campfire. This is, a jet engine or a reactor core kind of fire.
And the brightness radiating from it was intense. He said it was like the color of amber.
Amber, fire, rage. It's a clear description of a high-energy, high-heat object that seems to be operating under intense pressure. But the details of the vehicle itself, that's what has kept engineers awake at night for decades.
The specifics are incredible. He saw 4 strange beings accompanying the central structure, and then he described the actual apparatus.
The wheels within wheels.
Wheels within wheels, not just 2 parallel wheels, but one set intersecting another set perpendicularly.
Right, like a gyroscope.
Exactly. This geometry allows the object to move instantly in any direction without turning its chassis. Modern researchers immediately link this description to gyroscopic stabilization or, omnidirectional propulsion systems.
Right. It's hard not to read that and immediately see the blueprints for something akin to a large, complex drone or a V-tail aircraft. It's a flying machine designed by a deeply confused time traveler trying to explain complex propulsion to a person who only knows how a cart works. What do you think? Comment below. Was Ezekiel describing God or a sophisticated piece of industrial hardware?
And the description continues, detailing that the wheels were lifted up along with the beings, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels.
What does that even mean?
Well, it suggests an integrated system, maybe even biomechanical, or at least a system that is fully animated and controlled by the occupants. It's not just a box floating up, it's described as a living mechanism.
And later, Ezekiel describes an experience that, it resonates so heavily with the physical transportation and missing time elements you find in modern abduction accounts.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
He recounts being lifted up by the spirit, being transported to a mountaintop, stunned.
Stunned. He was in shock.
And hearing the sound of the wheels beside them that sounded like a great earthquake.
Yeah.
The incredible noise, the sudden physical lift, the momentary stunning and confusion. These are core elements we see today.
That's the same pattern.
The fact that an ancient prophet experienced physical transportation and auditory phenomena linked to an aerial craft. It sets the pattern for millennia to come. What's fascinating here is how consistent the descriptions of these specific objects were, even across vast empires, long before mass communication could standardize the imagery.
Yeah, that's the part that gets me. No internet, no TV, but the descriptions are eerily similar.
So we are moving out of the purely religious narratives and into the more sober historical chronicles, starting with the greatest record keepers of antiquity, the Romans.
Okay, so let's get to the flying shields. I love this. It sounds exactly like what a Roman would call a disc-shaped object they saw fighting in the sky.
It's the perfect term. In 99 BC, during the war with the Cimbri over Tarquinia, Italy, reports came in that were taken seriously enough to be preserved. Pliny the Elder recorded the tale of flying shields seen at night.
At night, okay.
They were described as flaming spears and shields that initially moved in random directions.
So we're talking multiple distinct geometrically defined objects, not just a single flash or a meteor.
Right, spears and shields. But here's the military detail that makes this account impossible to dismiss as a simple aurora or, ball lightning.
This is the crazy part.
They then clashed together, assuming the formations and movements of men in battle, and finally some of them would give way, while others pressed on in pursuit and all streamed away to the westward.
Whoa. Let's just pause there and really let that sink in. This is not a chaotic meteor shower. This is organized, tactical air combat.
It is.
The objects demonstrated intelligent, coordinated movement, mimicking the precise formations and maneuvers used by the Roman army itself. You've got retreat and pursuit, That description flies in the face of any known natural phenomena.
It sounds like a large-scale engagement involving advanced, coordinated aerial vehicles. It's the sheer complexity and intelligence behind the movement that makes the account survive. It's just too detailed to be folklore.
Absolutely.
And if we stick with the northern reaches of the Roman Empire, we find an instance where this aerial object seems to bring in a lot of other weird stuff with it.
Right, the Caledon airship, around 80 AD in Scotland.
During the time of Emperor Agricola, the chronicles mention wondrous flames seen over the Caledon woods. They specifically note that a ship was seen in the air, moving fast.
A ship. Not a light, not a star, a structured craft.
And this confirms the visual identification of an object with a structural similarity to a known vessel. But you mentioned the high strangeness.
Right. This is where we need to briefly talk about 14 phenomena, because the chroniclers didn't just report the ship. They also noted other bizarre events happening around the same time and place.
Exactly. 14 phenomena refers to these inexplicable events like spontaneous combustions, strange appearances, or impossible showers that often seem to cluster around core UAP sightings.
Well, the weirdness attracts more weirdness.
It's almost like that. In Caledon, the chroniclers reported showers of stones falling from the sky in one place, and bizarrely, a shower of frogs paddocks falling in another area.
Frogs is always frogs.
They also noted a burning fire high up, as if knights in armor and on foot or horse fought with great force at night.
So you have a fast-moving airship, and simultaneously, or nearby, you have literal frogs raining down and stones falling out of a clear sky. It's like the presence of this high-energy object acts like a magnet, pulling in or generating all sorts of other deeply weird physical effects. It's unsettling.
It is. And this notion of a known vessel, a ship in the sky, fully rigged, is a surprisingly pervasive and stable meme throughout history.
We see that crystal clear in the medieval record, right?
The clearest example comes from 749 AD in Ulster, Ireland. The Annals of Ulster is pretty plain-spoken, just noting. Ships, with their crews, were seen in the air above Cloyne-Macu.
With their crews.
With their crews. No ambiguity about structure, no ambiguity about the occupants being visible. They saw the whole crew on deck.
And what's wild is that this visual theme persists for 1,000 years, right into the Age of Enlightenment. Let's jump to Holyhead, Wales in 1743. You have an experienced farmer, William John Lewis, who, along with his wife and son, saw what looked like a terrestrial vessel, a fully rigged 90-ton ketch.
A ketch, a specific type of ship.
Sailing a quarter of a mile high from Yew Ground.
The detail here is what sells the story. He wasn't seeing a smudge in the sky. He saw the keel from below. The sails were distended with wind as if they were catching an upper atmospheric current.
No way!
And when the foresail was lowered, it hung naturally over the bow. It's an insane level of granularity for something that shouldn't exist.
And it wasn't just a flash. He watched it for a while, and there was natural interaction, too. The report mentions a flock of birds assembled to examine the phenomenon.
Yeah, flying around the ketch until it vanished behind a cloud.
Which demonstrates a physical, tangible object moving through the air that birds could actually interact with. It wasn't a projection.
This phenomenon of a flying ketch, viewed by multiple, rational witnesses across different centuries, it compels a serious question. Are these cultural misinterpretations of atmospheric anomalies, or does this indicate an ongoing, recurring physical mechanism that takes on the appearance of the most complex vehicles of the era? We have to wonder.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, truly strange. We're moving from lights and fighting ships to actual entities and physical contact. Contact that, in the Dark Ages, was naturally interpreted through the lens of medieval theology. We move right into the concept of abduction, Magonia, and sky people.
This is perhaps the most incredible historical account involving non-human interaction and physical occupants. We're talking about the story involving Archbishop Agobard, around 760 in France.
And Agobard wasn't just some random cleric.
Not at all. He is a serious philosopher, an early rationalist who wrote extensively against popular superstitions and pagan beliefs. He was the skeptic of his day.
Which is exactly why he was forced into the middle of this shocking real-life drama.
The story, preserved by his own writings, details how a massive crowd brought him 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman, all bound in chains.
In chains.
And the crowd was convinced that these individuals had fallen down from one of these ships, from the aerial realm they called Magonia.
So the medieval version of an emergency crash landing, and the local residents' reaction was, well, it was immediate and terrifying.
Worse than terrifying. The crowd, driven by fear and absolute certainty, had been holding them for a few days, and they brought them to the archbishop specifically in order to lapidate them.
Meaning they were prepared to stone them to death.
To stone them to death for being physical sky people who clearly posed a threat.
Wow. Think about that level of conviction. It's not just a rumor or a folktale. It's a physical, violent attempt to commit murder because the crowd believed these people were extraterrestrial trespassers.
I mean, Agobard, the rationalist, must have had an absolute nightmare trying to deal with this.
You can just picture him rubbing his temples.
Who did? Agobard had to argue extensively, appealing to reason and his anti-superstition principles to persuade the crowd that these people were not some sort of supernatural menace who needed to be killed immediately, and he managed to save them.
But his own account is a defense of why they should not believe in the physical reality of sky people.
That's a powerful nuance often missed. Agobard wasn't arguing that the crowd was wrong to see the aerial ship. He was arguing that the people weren't physical occupants who needed stoning. It shows the concept of non-terrestrial physical occupants was so present in the culture that a mass of people were willing to commit murder over it.
The belief was concrete, even if the intellectual elite tried to suppress it.
And this brings us right to the Dark Ages version of alien abduction, the debate over transvection.
Right.
By the late medieval period, authors of works like the Malleus Maleficarum,
The infamous Witch Hunter's Guide from 1486.
they were obsessing over the exact same question ufologists have today.
Were they physically transported, or was it a mental trick? A hallucination?
Precisely. They were debating if transvection transportation by demons or witches to secret gatherings was a real physical phenomenon or merely a sophisticated trick of the devil, inducing a psychological delusion in the victim's mind.
They were literally asking if the abduction was somatic or purely mental 5 centuries ago.
And their analysis led to documentation of bizarre details that match modern high strangeness perfectly.
Like the classic abduction trope. The physical examination, often associated with coldness.
Yes. The accounts of abduction by fairies or demons often contain striking parallels. You see the fear of a cold touch in the 1653 Anne Bodenham trial. The spirit's hand did feel cold to the maid as it touched her hand. And you see the theme of strange food or pills, replacing the demonic great feasts of old, where specific strange dietary rules applied.
Speaking of demonic feasts and dietary rules, we have to talk about the Roman countrymen who went to the witch gathering in 1526.
Oh, this one is great.
Transported by 2 Hugots. This story is just peak medieval weirdness.
It is the perfect blend of absurdity and pattern matching. So the countryman's wife, who was involved in the occult, warned him strictly not to pronounce the name of God during the journey or the ceremony.
A key rule, don't break the spell.
He attended the banquet, and after a long night of what I assume was just chaos, he noticed a strange key detail about the food.
The lack of seasoning.
Right. The food lacked salt. In demonological lore, salt has purifying qualities associated with warding off evil spirits and was strictly shunned by demons and fairies alike.
Because it was associated with preservation and, the divine.
Exactly. But our hero, the countryman, oblivious to the high stakes of seasoning, decided he was going to rectify the situation.
He was just trying to be a good guest.
He was trying to be polite, unknowingly breaking the cardinal rule of demonic banquets. He asked for salt. When he thought he had it in his hand, he exclaimed, "Thank God the salt has come."
And poof.
That instantly threw him, and presumably his wife, right back to his home. The magical spell, the mechanism of transvection, was instantly broken by a declaration of the divine and the introduction of a pure substance.
The parallels are undeniable. You have the non-human entity, the journey, the specialized warnings, the cold touch, and the consumption of strange substances. It's the same deep narrative pattern.
It is, just filtered through the cultural vocabulary of the time.
And before we move on, we have to mention Mario Amodei in Toronto, Italy in 1504. He represents the rapid process of cultural filtering. He was abducted, but his story was instantly framed as a religious event, leaving physical evidence.
Mario was in his garden at dawn, and he was surrounded by a dazzling light. He heard a voice, felt lifted from the ground, and was carried away.
He was levitated.
And the apparition instructed him to build a temple. The resulting temple, consecrated shortly after, became the permanent physical trace of the phenomenon. This shows how quickly an aerial object and a message could become solidified into a major religious mandate.
It completely displaces the idea of a physical encounter with, Magonian sky people. It's all about interpretation, isn't it? If this phenomenon appears today, we write a physics paper. If it appeared in 1504, we'd build a church.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And listen, if you are enjoying this deep dive into the bizarre annals of history, stick around. We've only just scratched the surface. We are a small channel and we'd love you on board, so please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us keep digging up these incredible historical footnotes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the 16th century is absolutely critical. This is the start of the Renaissance and the slow crawl toward the Age of Reason.
Right.
Ironically, the need for better documentation meant we started getting extremely detailed rational chronicles of things that were totally inexplicable.
And nowhere is that documentation better than the utterly terrifying Nuremberg aerial battle of 1561. This is the stuff that should make any modern UAP researcher just sit up and take notes.
It was a shocking morning sighting, captured vividly in a woodcut illustration and a printed pamphlet detailing witness testimony.
So we have images and text.
We do. The date was April 14th. The diversity of objects described is astounding. Witnesses reported seeing beyond balls of a red color, bluish or black, and circular discs, along with 2 large pipes.
2 large pipes? That sounds suspiciously like a classic cigar or cylinder-shaped craft that modern UAP reports still cite.
It does. And inside or near these larger vessels were smaller spheres. It's like motherships releasing smaller drones or fighters.
That analogy is perfect. And the key observation, the reason the sighting is so famous, is the military detail.
The chroniclers state that all these elements started fighting against one another. It was a choreographed aerial battle. The objects maneuvered and engaged tactically, displaying aggressive, intelligent behavior.
This isn't a flock of birds or reflected light. This is organized, high-altitude engagement.
The spectacle ended violently. The pamphlet describes that after the engagement, everything, quote, fell to earth as if everything was burning, and with great smoke, everything got consumed.
So they crashed.
It indicates physical objects that were defeated or destroyed and suffered catastrophic failure, hitting the ground with smoke and fire. This was not subtle. This was a war in the sky witnessed by an entire city and documented meticulously.
The idea that multiple distinct, geometrically defined aerial objects, spheres, disks, cylinders, would engage in a prolonged dogfight above a major European city is perhaps the single most compelling piece of pre-modern physical UAP evidence we have. It's mind-blowing.
And it wasn't an isolated incident. Across Europe, educated observers were documenting these anomalies. A few years earlier, in 1554, the famous physician and astrologer Dr. Nostradamus.
Right. It's often forgotten that Nostradamus was an acute observer of non-celestial aerial phenomena, not just a guy making cryptic predictions. He was documenting current events.
Exactly. This object was seen by more than 1,000 people, including Nostradamus himself. He wrote a description of a big, bright burning rod that was visible for 2 hours.
2 hours? That's a long time for any misidentified celestial body, like a meteor or something.
A very long time.
Yeah.
And it was displaying a swinging motion and changing its flight path, all while casting fiery sparks around it. And he gave an incredible physical estimate of its size.
Yeah, get this.
He estimated its width in the sky around 200 yards, which is enormous. It suggests it was immense even at altitude.
And he concluded that it was flying so high that if it had been lower, it would have burnt up everything and reduced it to ashes as it went by.
Which links the sighting directly to a terrifying potential for devastation, confirming the perceived danger and physical energy of the object.
That fear of physical destruction and heat is a recurring theme. These aren't just silent lights. Let's look at the heat-generating globe seen in Hamburg, Germany in 1547.
That case is critical because it definitively points to a clear physical energy phenomena. Sailors saw a glistening globe, fiery like the sun, rolling towards the northern part at midnight.
At midnight. Okay, so it's not the sun.
Not the sun. They saw it clearly. But the description of the physical effect is startling. Its rays were so hot that passengers could not remain inside the ships.
No way.
It forced them to take cover below deck, fearing their vessels were about to catch fire.
Wait, so this object, observed at midnight, was emitting enough radiant heat that people on ships hundreds of feet below it had to physically retreat into the hull for protection.
That's what the account says.
That eliminates any possibility of a simple optical illusion or light reflection. That points to something generating colossal, palpable energy.
Exactly. Whether they called it an omen, a chariot, or a sign of pestilence, they were chronicling a physical event that could emit dangerous levels of heat and demonstrate intelligent, coordinated movement. This foundation of detailed observation is why these accounts matter so much.
So, What does this all mean? I mean, we have mechanical chariots in 850 BC, tactical air battles in the 16th century, and ships sailing a quarter mile above Wales in the 18th century.
The consistent pattern is undeniable.
It is. And it leads us to look outside the Western canon, into records that are even older, interpreting high-tech conflict in deep antiquity.
That's right. If we turn to ancient India, we find the accounts of the Vaimanas.
And this is the oldest dated story in our reading, circling back to around 4780 BC, predating even the written records of Egypt.
The Bhagavata Purana details King Citraketu traveling in outer space on a brilliantly effulgent ship given to him by Lord Vishnu. This isn't just a simple carriage. It's an advanced vehicle capable of inter-realm travel.
Right, space travel.
And within these texts, you find descriptions of warfare that sound absolutely technological.
Warfare involving something that looks distinctly like energy weapons.
Absolutely. The descriptions of aerial warfare detail Lord Shiva's arrows appearing like fiery beams emanating from the sun globe that covered and obscured other ships.
Fiery beams.
Later texts even describe the yantras, the specific machines, in detail. Some researchers interpret the descriptions as suggesting the Vaimanas were powered by mercury vapor engines or similar complex propulsion systems.
That is either the earliest known science fiction, a kind of Indian Star Wars millennia ahead of its time, or it is an enduring record of high-tech conflict in deep antiquity.
And what's genuinely fascinating, however, is the strange linguistic fact noted in our reading about these machines.
Yes, the memory degradation.
Later Indian texts describing these machines suggest they were less powerful, less complex, and less capable than those detailed in the older works like the Purana. As the original technical knowledge faded, the descriptions shifted from detailed mechanical operations
Like specific propulsion fuels or complex maneuverability.
to simply referring to magical power or divine guidance. This suggests a diminishing, fading cultural memory of a lost technology.
That is so interesting. Okay, shifting across the globe to Africa, we find the astronomical knowledge of the Dogon tribe in Mali.
And this absolutely confounds conventional historical timelines and points straight back to non-human instruction.
So the Dogon, migrating across Africa, somehow possessed highly accurate astronomical knowledge, specifically concerning the Sirius system, which is 8.6 light-years away.
Right. And their knowledge included details about Sirius B, which is a white dwarf star, incredibly dense and heavy, that is only visible through powerful telescopes.
And it was only confirmed by modern astronomers in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Correct. But they weren't guessing about the cosmos. Their traditions knew Sirius B was there, and that it was tiny but immensely heavy. They also knew that the Earth revolves around the Sun, Jupiter has 4 major moons, and Saturn has rings.
So how did a geographically isolated tribe possess knowledge that Europe didn't acquire until the telescope revolution?
And their traditional source for this profound, accurate knowledge, they claim amphibious beings called Nomo, which means to drink, descended from the sky in a noisy vessel and imparted this knowledge to their ancestors.
So you have knowledge transmission via an aerial entity. It's the same pattern again.
This enduring mystery of accurate astronomical knowledge, coupled with non-human instruction, is yet another permutation of the core narrative. I mean, if you're looking for a smoking gun of outside intervention, the Dogon mystery is right up there.
It really challenges our entire understanding of technological diffusion.
It forces us to ask, what do we do with physical evidence? A star chart that contradicts the known history of science.
Okay, finally, we come back to one of the wildest physical encounter stories, which I promised up top. Straight out of the Russian steppe in 1796. The drinking Cossack and the eyeball, it's got everything.
Yeah.
A mystery object, violence, and a hint of dark humor.
In March 1796, villagers in the Don region discovered a massive 10-foot metal ball in a remote field. It was smooth as marble, had no visible tracks leading to it, and was so heavy it was impossible to move.
So it could only have arrived from above.
It seemed so. It had a pattern of etched regular circles covering its surface, lending it a distinctly manufactured feel.
The villagers were terrified, right, believing it was a manifestation of the devil.
Of course. Enter Pushkin, the local town drunkard, gambler, and general heretic, who was nonetheless known for his excessive, reckless bravery.
The perfect hero for this story.
The villagers, convinced the object was unholy, led the drunken Pushkin to the spot, hoping his recklessness would somehow break the spell. Pushkin, fueled by vodka and rage, decided to challenge the object physically.
He drew his saber, cursed it in colorful language, and struck the metal ball repeatedly with his sword.
And this is where the story goes, full B-movie horror.
I love this part.
The crowd howled with terror because suddenly one of the etched circles on the ball sprang open like a hatch, revealing a single, large, dark, inhuman eye peering out at Pushkin.
I can't even imagine the shock of that moment. You strike an inert object, and it actively, intelligently responds by showing you a single, enormous, biological, yet inhuman eye.
The story continues that Pushkin then vanished for 2 days, only to stumble back with his horse, seeming half asleep and in a stupor tower, a common symptom associated with missing time and trauma in modern abduction reports.
Wow.
He quickly flew into a rage, determined to burn the unholy globe. But when he returned to the field, the metal ball was gone.
It just left.
It was gone, leaving only the memory of his confrontation.
It sounds like the object decided, you know what, I'm out. This is not worth the trouble. What do you think? Comment below. Was Pushkin the first person to successfully anger an alien visitor into leaving Earth?
The pattern is consistent. A non-terrestrial object, physical effects, and a specific encounter with an occupant, followed by witness trauma and the object's sudden disappearance.
And finally, we also see evidence that some stories are so powerful, they cross over from ancient history into literal, acknowledged hoaxes.
Yes, the enduring persistence of the narrative itself is important. The story of the aerial diver and the ship anchor, which was a 12th century Irish folktale, was recycled almost verbatim 700 years later.
During the massive airship flap in the U.S. in 1897.
A Texas newspaper published a story about a massive airship anchor snagging on railroad tracks in Merkel, Texas. And who descends to cut the rope?
A small man in a light blue sailor suit who then sails off in the airship.
The details were simply updated for the era. Railroad tracks replaced the tombstone that the anchor snagged on in the Irish tale. The small man wears a sailor suit instead of medieval garb.
But the core components are identical.
The aerial ship, the snag anchor, the small occupant making physical contact. These patterns, spheres, disks, high heat, military formation, and small entities with physical effects have been a constant fixture in human history, regardless of whether we call them gods, fairies, or extraterrestrials.
So we've traveled from the fiery chariots of biblical Israel to 19th century eyeball-equipped metal spheres in Russia, and we've seen consistent reports of tactical aerial battles and physical abduction across every major culture. The sheer volume and consistency of these non-meteorological, non-cometary accounts are absolutely staggering.
This is the crucial takeaway for our deep dive. The ancient world had no collective mass media, no internet, no way to synchronize hoax narratives. Yet stories of sophisticated aerial objects, physical abduction, and instruction from non-human intelligence managed to persist and mirror each other across continents and thousands of years.
The phenomenon itself seems to generate the exact same narrative structure, regardless of the cultural vocabulary people use to describe it. It's either a god, a demon, or an alien, but the mechanism, the fiery departure, the metallic sphere, the cold touch, it stays the same.
That's precisely the provocative thought we are left with tonight. We have two possible conclusions that these historical records force upon us.
Okay.
Either the exact same phenomenon known today as UAP has existed throughout recorded history, constantly interacting with humanity and changing its mask over time.
Or there is a massive unrecognized mechanism deep within the human psyche that causes us to interpret external, unusual stimuli in the exact same powerful narrative structures, regardless of time or place. It's an archetypal pattern generator triggered by the bizarre.
In either case, this is not a modern invention. We are simply the latest culture to try and rationalize an enduring mystery, utilizing terms like physics and technology, where our ancestors used miracle and demon.
Exactly. We are only the most recent generation to look up and assess the data transmitted by the ancient chroniclers, confirming that whatever's going on up there, it's been going on for a very, very long time.
Keep exploring the mysterious back catalogs of human history, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.